Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final roadmap event of 2022. Thanks for being here. We got about almost 50 people in attendance, so it's really good to see folks turning out on a Tuesday evening to talk about ranked choice voting. So I'm Ben Chapman. I'm the communications manager for FairVote Washington. I'll be your MC for the evening, and I'm going to go around quick introduction of folks. Starting with Lisa Aero, and if you'd like to share something that's maybe on your holiday wish list to get us started, that'd be great. So Lisa Aero, you're this direction for me.
Hey everybody, Lisa Aero, Executive Director at FairVote Washington. I just started a pot of butternut squash soup. I'm looking forward to cozy times in the next couple of weeks.
Great, thanks Lisa. And then Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the managing director of FairVote Washington. My Christmas wish list. Oh, well, I am a new Tacoma homeowner, so my wish list is really boring, but I'm really hoping that one of my family members gets me a vacuum. Like, I really would like a new vacuum.
That's smart. Good vacuums are good. All right, Sam.
Hey everybody, Sam Pereira, they, them pronouns. I'm FairVote Washington's organizer. Steph, having bought one for Black Friday, I can attest that vacuums are life-changing. My Christmas wish list. I really want those light up deer that people put on their lawns. I don't know why, but apparently that's something I want. So there we go.
Love it. All right. Well, as I said, my name is Ben Chapman. I am hoping to get a board game or two for this holiday season. So really excited about that. So what is this evening going to look like? We're going to be joined in a few minutes by Council Member Andrew Lewis from Seattle, who will be giving us a retrospective on Seattle. We're going to start first with Lisa Aero, who's going to give us some background on San Juan County and Clark County. And we're going to finish off with giving you a sneak peek into our legislative plan for next year in 2023. As so many of you probably know, each year brings a new legislative session and a new opportunity to pass great legislation that's going to bring more ranked choice voting ballots to voters. And finally, we're going to have a Q&A. So for Q&A, I'll direct you to the bottom of your screen. We're going to have a Q&A kind of icon. It's going to say Q &A. You click on that, you'll have the opportunity to enter your question, and either you'll get an answer via the Q&A little pop-up. You'll be able to see an answer from a staff member there, or we'll answer your question live at the end of this event. Or if you don't get your question answered, please shoot us an email at info@fairvotewad.org, and we will we'll find you the information you need there. All right, sound good? I can't hear you, so I don't know why I said that. All right, let's get started. So we'll start with Lisa. So Lisa, San Juan County and Clark County were two of the places in Washington that had ranked choice voting on the ballot. Can you tell us about the history of those campaigns and how did ranked choice voting get on the ballot there?
Sure, Ben. I get to start first. The two campaigns that didn't cross the finish line in our favor, San Juan and Clark, but you know, we had just as much fun out there as we did in Seattle. Honest to goodness, what teams we had, volunteers out at the San Juan County Fair, at the Farmers Market, at the Taco Festival, and Juneteenth, knocking on doors, putting up yard signs, calling and texting. We gave it our all, and 85,000 people voted yes for ranked choice voting in those two counties. We know we moved the needle on voter education. That's fundamental, because a couple of the things we learned on this campaign were certainly, taking note of our lessons so we can do better. We've got a long way to go to bring ranked choice voting statewide, and we wanted to learn every lesson we can from Clark and San Juan. So one of the main things we learned is that people lean no on this issue. They start out no. And it takes persuasion to get them to understand that ranked choice voting can really make a difference in the way their government works. So by and large, people like their county government, and that's good news. That we hadn't made the case for change. We hadn't gotten through to enough voters to really understand why ranked choice voting can make a difference for them. So making the case for change is important. Local endorsements, we learned, are really crucial. So next time around, we're going to be digging deeper to really put front and center those local endorsements. But mainly what we learned is that we just need more of all those things we did. It just takes more. The margin of victory of our losing in San Juan County was 917 votes. 917 doors that we didn't knock, voters that we didn't get a chance to talk to. And we know we can do that the next time around. So those are, I think, our lessons. The other thing just to say, and just for understanding the local landscape, these were local measures put on the ballot by their local charter review commissions. And in both cases, in both counties, voters overwhelmingly rejected the measures that were on their ballot. In San Juan County, they rejected all of them. And in Clark County, they rejected most. And so in no way was this a, clear referendum on ranked choice voting. These were voters who didn't know what it was and leaned no.
Thanks, Lisa. That's a good reminder that all politics are local. And yeah, for sure. Speaking of local politics, good to see you, Councilmember Lewis. Thank you for joining us this evening. So now I'm going to pass it over to Stephanie Houghton, our managing director, to chat a little bit with Councilmember Lewis about what went down in Seattle. Firstly, I'm going to give you the nitty-gritty about what it looked like in Seattle. So in Seattle, we had a bit of a different question. You might have seen some of the news reports coming out of the city. There were actually two questions. The first was, do you want to change how we vote? And the second was, would you like ranked choice voting or approval voting? And on the second question, voters overwhelmingly said, we like ranked choice voting. We want ranked choice voting. That was great to see. It took us a few days longer to see the results come in that voters wanted to change their elections. And so now we get to say ranked choice voting is coming to Seattle primary elections, which is really exciting because that means I'm going to get to use ranked choice voting in a future election. And I'm so excited about that. So many other folks on this call will get to do the same. And I hope you're just as excited. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Stephanie and the council member.
Thanks, Ben. I will not get to use ranked choice voting in the next election. I live in Tacoma, but thank you so much, council member, for joining us tonight. And thank you, Ben, for giving us that rundown. It was a complicated ballot question, and that made it really, really tough. But I would really love to start, council member, with something a little bit more general. First, if you want to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you so much. And it's really good to be here. And it's great to be here under these circumstances. So I just want to start out by acknowledging that. As Stephanie and Ben indicated, my name is Andrew Lewis. I'm a Seattle City Council member. I represent District 7 on the Seattle City Council, which includes downtown Queen Anne, Magnolia, Pioneer Square, and South Lake Union, among other neighborhoods. And back in the summer, in July, my office worked with the FairVote folks and a number of other community constituencies to put an alternative on the ballot to the approval voting measure. As has been indicated, we did have a group of local citizens supported by national, now indicted crypto magnates.
You said it, not me. I wasn't going to say anything.
I'm just talking about current events, nothing personal. Who put on the ballot a measure for approval voting, a reform that St. Louis, Missouri and Fargo, North Dakota have adopted. There was a lot of community debate and discussion and consternation about the impact that might occur if Seattle voters approved approval voting. And we had that system, and if it would reduce momentum for ranked choice voting and instant runoff voting, which by far are the reforms of choice. And we've seen nationally other jurisdictions follow suit in this election cycle, the state of Nevada, and I think a couple of other places that have adopted ranked choice voting. It's not just us. So it was important to put an alternative on the ballot, and the reason that I'm here today is because I sponsored legislation to put an alternative on the ballot, which is a power the council has under the charter. So we voted on both approval voting and ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting, as we've discussed, decisively won, I think by a margin of 160,000 or some votes, so nowhere close. And the threshold measure passed by about 2%, if I'm remembering correctly, when all was finally counted. So that's what brings me here today, and that's my background.
Great, thank you so much. Can I ask, so for me, I found out about ranked choice voting when I was working in Chicago on a 13-way primary for mayor. It was wild. We had some people running exclusively to stop other people from winning, which, as we all know, is frustrating and not the point. So I happened to hear a podcast about ranked choice voting while I was working on that race. I've been interested in that ever since, but I'm always interested to hear how people heard about ranked choice voting or arrived at ranked choice voting. How did you first hear about it or come to realize that this could actually make a difference in Seattle?
So I've known about ranked choice voting for a long time. I have not always been a supporter of ranked choice voting, but as someone who's been in and around politics for well over a decade at this point, I'm very familiar with it. My opinion actually started shifting quite a bit as an elected official on ranked choice voting, because I do like the incentives that system creates in terms of encouraging people to build broad coalitions, encouraging people to work together. It gives politicians an incentive to not give up on any person or constituency, because tiered choice becomes more important. So even if someone isn't your first choice, if you're down the road in an election that will be ranked choice, it's going to matter if you're a second or third choice in a crowded race. So you start seeing the values when you start governing of systems that disincentivize polarization. And that's one of the things, if you're someone that's in politics, I guess I should say, because you want to get things done and you want to try to build consensus, it's good to have colleagues that are thinking about their incentives in terms of trying to create broad bases, broad appeal, and reach out to a diverse array of interest groups instead of making strictly polarized or partisan decisions to try to get advantage by going to the extremes. So that's sort of been my interest in it. And this last July, there was an opportunity to advance the policy, and my office was happy to help move it forward.
That's so great. And I really love that you bring a candidate perspective, because we spend a lot of time talking about why this is good for voters, but I also agree it is good for candidates. Was there a particular, and it's okay if there wasn't, but was there a particular moment when you were like, oh, wait, actually, I need to change my mind on ranked choice voting because this one thing happened? And, or another alternative question that I would have is like, what were your hesitations about ranked choice voting and like as a voter, and then how did specifically like those, like what was that evolution like outside of just being an elected official who had to start campaigning and then governing, which is something we often forget.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I was ever opposed to ranked choice voting. I think I was just ambivalent on the entire issue until really serving on the city council for 2 years and seeing the potential of that system. I think a lot of people nationally had a galvanizing moment in the last cycle when the outcome in Alaska's at-large congressional race was so unexpected. In Sarah Palin not winning. I mean, I'm sure like me, and I'm sure a lot of other observers fully expected at least that seat would go to a Republican and potentially Sarah Palin. And indeed, in a universe where there's a traditional runoff, it potentially would have, right? I mean, it's sort of, it shows the unique incentives where someone very polarizing is not ultimately a successful candidate under ranked choice voting because the incentives are shifted. So I would say that's probably a moment that in this last election cycle was probably galvanizing for a lot of people. I've certainly seen it kind of change the discourse around this. Like there's a lot of people that I notice on social media talking about like, hey, could Arizona get ranked choice voting with the recent party affiliation change of Kirsten Sinema, right? So there's people who it's getting more awareness, people are more familiar with it. And I would say that historically, and I think this is a place where a lot of skeptics are. It's like, what problem are we trying to solve, right? And you have a lot of activists on either sides of these issues that are looking at it through the prism of delivering a certain outcome. When I think the biggest benefits are more about the process than the outcome and the incentives of the process. And that was something I hadn't really thought about until I was doing this all day, every day, and was sort of a subject of public discussion in a way that I hadn't been before, or was engaging in, public policy conversations that, where there's give and take and compromise is necessary, and working with other political actors who see their incentives through the prism of a current system, which benefits extremes. It doesn't benefit trying to compromise, it benefits trying to win against your opposition, because ultimately things are polarized, and then primaries have more power than a general election, because you need to get through a primary to even be able to win a general election. So I think that if I had kind of known or had received messaging about kind of the merits of the overall process, that it takes the temperature down, it encourages people to be more collegial. Those weren't really the things that were front and center when I was first kind of thinking about ranked choice voting. In this last cycle, certainly those were more relevant for me and something I talked about a lot more.
Cool. So, okay, you are a city council member, and I'm not asking you to make any big wild announcements about running again, but you would have to run again. If you ran again, you would have to run under ranked choice, using ranked choice voting. What is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to about that, or is there anything that you're like I don't know if this was a good idea on that?
Yeah, well, the analogy I use a lot, and my friend Gurmai Zahawai has used this analogy too, is going door to door campaigning, and you knock on someone's door and they're supporting somebody else. And under our current system, that's basically it. I mean, there's nothing you can really do. In my last race in 2019, and actually, unfortunately, Stephanie, if I do run again next year, it'll still be under our current system because I'm up again.
Right, that's true. Yes.
But if I were to run next year, get reelected, and then run again in 2027, at that point, it would be the ranked choice voting system that we just passed. And the debate, I think, will be enhanced under that system, because you'll be able to have real conversations and really forge a relationship with voters who under the current system just write you off, and it becomes well, we need to beat this person because we've made our choice and we only have one way to assign our choice. Running in a campaign, I think, will be very culturally different depending on how a candidate wants to conduct themselves. Like if you're a candidate that wants to build a broad base and be more collegial and try to solve problems, I think it's a better system, because you can go and have these conversations, you can learn about, and conversely, as a candidate, you're learning things you might not have learned under the old system. You're having discussions with constituents who might have a unique problem germane just to their block or their particular neighborhood that you won't necessarily hear somewhere else. And if that's the only person on that block who opens their door, but they're voting for the other guy, you don't even get to really have that discussion because they're voting for the other guy. Under this new pivot, people have an incentive to talk to you. That also gives you an opportunity to learn more things about the district you're governing and the people you're governing. And it makes them feel invested in you, even if you're not their first choice, in a way where if you do get elected, they feel like, well, he wasn't my first choice, but he was my second choice out of 8. So I feel invested. That's a lot, like if there's 8 choices, assigning a second choice is big. And so that person's like, okay, maybe they weren't the assigned first choice, but I feel like that guy still owes me, right?
Yeah.
Second. And
well,
and you
You're
feel some
buying
ownership.
in, yeah.
Whereas under the current system, I mean, I know for a fact there's some people in my district who opposed me last time, and still feel like some awkwardness around that. Even though I'm quick to kind of get over things, but not everybody's like that, as I can appreciate. And and it puts them sort of in a crunch where maybe they're more likely to try to join a coalition opposing me if I run again. Whereas under ranked choice voting, they might not feel those same incentives. They might feel like they have trust in a relationship with me where they can come to me with their problems and I can help them solve them. So
yeah, that trust on a small scale is really, really important. All politics is local. Well, we are just about ready to wrap up our portion of the evening, Andrew. And I'm gonna swing it back to Ben, but do you have anything you want to share before we drop off?
no, look, I'm down to continue having this policy conversation. There's obviously a lot of work to do. I know that there would be a preference to go to instant runoff voting. I know that there would be a preference to build on the gains that we did make in this last cycle. So continue to consider me as an ally, and I look forward to working on those issues, and appreciate the work, Stephanie, of yourself and everybody at FairVote who helped get this last campaign over the top. Because I guess the last thing I'll just say is, on election night, when I kind of gave my remarks, I was actually not completely confident that in the late returns the measure would pull ahead. Just because historically the campaign that the stranger endorses against tends to lose in the later count. And I was thrilled to see later that it came back. But I just want to say to the team here, a really phenomenal job of getting it done, because going up against 2 editorials saying no, going up against a coalition of people who were very motivated to try to scuttle this after we put it on the ballot, the approval voting people, it was an impressive a campaign that was run by everybody here. So I just want to salute you for it. You did a great job. And now we have to go to the work of implementation and building on those gains, and consider me an ally in that fight. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember, for joining us. Thank you for saying such nice things and for your continued support. We definitely worked very hard, and not, by the way, just for the record, not everyone who worked on the campaign works for FairVote Washington. We had incredible partners at Kamau Shege, Washington Community Alliance, Kenya at WER, Washington for Equitable Representation. We had partners all over the state, and really, like, they've been leading from the Seattle place, and that's so important. So thank you so much for giving them a shout out too. We appreciate that.
Yeah, and one last thing, Ben Chapman, I'm a big board game guy, so hit me up.
Wow.
DM me on Twitter, and let's, because we're always, some of these strategy board games, man, it's hard to get like that 6th or 7th person that wants to play like Access and Allies or something. So if you're down, hit me a DM, and I'll include you like in my thread of when we need to like get some, we're going to spend a whole Saturday playing a strategy board game kind of things going. So let me know.
Sounds great to me. This webinar is...
Ranked choice voting truly brings people together. It truly brings people together.
There you go. See? All right.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Great. I have plans for this this upcoming winter break, it sounds like.
Seriously.
So that was our kind of retrospective. Thank you, Stephanie, for leading us through that. Now we're going to start to look forward. What's coming up for 2023? And just as a reminder, keep sending in your questions to the Q&A. We've gotten a few good ones so far, but we're going to have that Q&A session after all the folks have, after our kind of scheduled part of the evening. But now it's up to Stephanie to take this part away solo. So Stephanie, tell us a little bit about what's coming up for the next year.
Sure. Okay. So, yes, now I'm just talking apparently to myself. So as you all know, we just finished up 3 campaigns. A lot of people voted for ranked choice voting, which is really exciting. The next step for us, we are looking directly ahead to the legislative session. So that's going to start in January. And for those of you who have been with FairVote Washington for a few years, you will have heard of us talking about both the local options bill and the presidential primaries bill. The local options bill is a fan favorite for sure. I really love the local options bill. In the past, what it has had on offer is essentially saying to local jurisdictions, cities, counties, if you'd like to start using ranked choice voting, then you can. It is local and optional, and local jurisdictions get to decide whether or not they'd like to use it. So that's been in front of the legislature a couple of different times for a couple of years, a couple of sessions, and it has not passed. And I can talk for a while about why it hasn't passed, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Last year, for the first time, we added the presidential primaries bill to our slate. And what that would mean is we start using ranked choice voting in the presidential primaries. That bill did not move last year, but this year we've decided, for a couple of reasons, that we're only going to be focused on the presidential primaries ranked choice voting bill. We love the local options bill, and we hope that we are able to get it through another time. This year, though, for FairVote Washington, for ranked choice voting, we are really focused on presidential primaries. There are a couple of reasons for that. One, we think that we're actually going to be able to get it implemented in time for the next presidential primary, which will be in 2024. So we have to do that this year. And in my experience, if you've got two rabbits and you go after both of them, you're not going to catch either one. We need to choose one. And I will say we've gone back and forth on this a lot internally. We all love the local options bill, but we're choosing to focus on the presidential primaries bill. So, quick review. So, the presidential primaries bill, ranked choice voting, would mean that instead of just choosing one person to nominate within your party, you would be able to rank the candidates who have who are in the race, who you would like to rank. So no matter which party you're in, I think most folks are aware that there were over 20 candidates running for the Democratic nomination in 2020. There were a lot of good ones. There were some that were not so great. But no matter what, if you've got over 20 people running for a single nomination, a single office, there's no way anybody's coming out of there with 50% in every single state. So ranked choice voting would mean that you rank your candidates and the same rule would apply. The floor would just be set by the parties. I will come back to that. So here's why we need this, particularly in Washington. So going back 2020, a lot of people voted and it was great. Mail-in voting, fantastic. People get their ballots a couple weeks early, they fill it out, they send it back in. But here's the thing about the presidential nomination contest, people drop out. And that's what happened. Between people filling out their ballots in Washington and actual election day, primary day in Washington, folks dropped out. Senator Klobuchar, gone. Mayor Pete Buttigieg, not there anymore. Senator Warren also dropped out. 25% of the votes that were cast in the 2020 Democratic primary weren't counted in Washington, not for any nefarious reason. They just, like, those voters voted for someone who was no longer in the race. That's huge, 25%. And the thing is, like Councilmember Lewis mentioned, a lot of folks ask us when we're talking about ranked choice voting, what problem are we trying to solve? That's it. We're trying to solve that problem. We have a really urgent problem we're able to point to and say, this doesn't work. 25% of voters did what we want them to do. They voted early, they sent them in early, they sent their ballot in early, and they were essentially punished for doing that. We've talked to voters who felt like they were treated unfairly. And then we've also heard from auditors who were getting phone calls the day after folks dropped out saying, oh my gosh, can I have another one? My candidate dropped out. And the answer is no, you get to vote once. So by working on the presidential primaries bill, we're able to take advantage of this momentum that we got from Seattle and from all of the hard work that all of our partners have been doing for the last 6 years. And we're able to hopefully jump into the legislature and say, okay, here's the problem. It's okay, don't worry, we've also got a solution. One of the things that we hear a lot about is, well, is the DNC still going to count my vote? Like that also would matter, right? Right now, I can tell you that Maine is going to be using ranked choice voting in their next presidential primary in 2024. And that actually in 2020, several states were using ranked choice voting for their Democratic nominating process. The reason I'm only talking about the Democratic process right now is because it was a competitive process in 2020. So that's the deal. So what does that mean that we need from all of you? Well, we definitely need help from all of you, from all of our listeners, our supporters. Right now, you are listeners, you are all supporters. I'm going to actually pass it over to Sam in a little bit to talk about what exactly we need to support, like how you can best demonstrate your support for the presidential primaries bill. But I'm also here to definitely take some questions as well. And I want to be very clear about something in particular, because I know I haven't looked at the list of questions yet, but I know I'm going to get some questions about why we suddenly hate the local options bill. We do not. I want to be very, very clear. We still love the local options bill. We are just prioritizing the presidential primaries bill. So I'm going to toss it back to Ben, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Stephanie. Really appreciate that. I am super excited to work on this bill, because that means that a ranked choice voting ballot can be in my hands even sooner than 2025 or 2027. So that's one reason I'm really excited about this bill. I also just think the presidential primary is super important and lots of people pay attention. So yeah, ranked choice voting for presidential primaries makes total sense to me. Now, how are we going to take action? Let's toss it over to Sam Pereira, our organizer. Sam, take it away.
Thanks, Ben. Before we talk about this upcoming year, I just want to take this time to say a big thank you and shout out to every single one of you who was participating in our campaigns this past year, everybody who knocked a door, donated, volunteered their time. Thank you all so much. We really couldn't have gotten as far as we did without you, certainly not past it in Seattle. So every little thing you do is super helpful, and we really appreciate it. So coming up in the legislature, we're going to need to make sure that our elected officials see that we have a ton of support, like this ground swelling of support. So what can we do? One of the things that we can do is just get, like Steph was mentioning earlier, a lot of endorsements. And when we're talking about endorsements, we're not just talking about huge things like a Rotary Club. We want you to really think outside the box on this one. So things you might not typically think of, like say your book club or a Girl Scout troop, something that may seem small or inconsequential to you, but the more and more of these things we see, the more and more legislators will realize, oh, there's a lot of different groups of people who care about this and think that it's a good idea. We just want to have a torrent of endorsements on our website for people to just be able to look and say, wow, this ranked choice voting thing has a lot of proponents and people seem to be intrigued. So maybe I, an elected official, should be caring about this, because that's what we need to do. We need to kind of put some pressure on our electeds to make sure that they pay attention to ranked choice voting and realize how important it is to us. It can be very easy for us in this Zoom room in our little FairVote Washington ecosystem. We're all passionate about ranked choice voting, right? So sometimes we make the mistake of thinking, oh, everybody else is going to be as interested and passionate as we are and is going to just like take this on. We explain the idea. It's great. You know, the idea itself is great. So the implementation shouldn't be that hard. No, as we've seen, we have to work for it. So in doing the work, we're going to need to not only be putting pressure on the legislators directly, but also showing them that we have a lot of support going on. And talking to your legislators and elected officials is going to be a part of this as well. So if anybody's interested in doing that, we are going to have a survey going around where you can express your interest in doing that. And if you are up for that sort of conversation, or I think you might want to try it, you're going to have a 30-minute session scheduled with me where we can talk about what it is that that consists of and get you ready to help talk to your legislator. So those are some of the ways that you can go ahead and get involved. And yeah, we're really excited to have you on board to help us, because just because we're not having a campaign where you can go knock a door doesn't mean that you can't do something to help get this passed in the legislature. Really, we do depend on all of you so much, and we're very grateful and appreciative. I think I'll toss it back to Ben, unless you can think of something I forgot, Steph, which is legitimate. So
Steph says no. Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate it. This is to all of us now. It is question and answer time. So just another reminder, keep sending your questions to the Q&A. We're going to do this panel style. So I'll ask the question and toss it over to, well, just whoever wants to answer it between Sam, Stephanie, and Lisa. So let's start with a question we got from David. David asks, current politicians have mostly won office using a non-ranked choice voting system and will therefore prefer the system that may return them to office. Does this mean that FairVote focuses on referendums rather than the legislature?
I love that question so much. That's such a great question. Thank you for asking it. So the answer is we try to focus on things that we can actually get done. And we also try to make them as close to what we want as we possibly can. So that means that sometimes we go to the legislature and ask them to make changes to races that don't directly affect them, which is true of the local options bill. And sometimes we get to work with fabulous council members like Andrew Lewis, who said, yeah, I know this is going to affect my race. That is okay. I've talked to legislators who have said, well, I'm here, so everything must be fine. That is maybe not a direct quote, but pretty darn close. So there's that. But it's really like, what can we get done? And then I will also say that it's different. There are only 4 counties in the state that will allow us to fully implement ranked choice voting. The Seattle one we're only using ranked choice voting in the primary, not in the general. So there are limits to what we can do on the ballot. There are also limits to what we can do in the legislature. So part of our long-term strategy is how can we get those things to work together so that we can have ranked choice voting exist in as many places as possible, as closely to the ideal ranked choice voting situation as possible. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. Our next question comes from Tavin. Have you been hearing any buzz around ranked choice voting for 2024 Republican primaries, given the number of candidates they may have? I can take it if nobody else wants to, but please, somebody else take it.
Yeah, Ben, why don't you take that? You and I were just discussing this very question today. You go ahead.
All right. So what I'm seeing is, so I really believe that whichever party figures out that ranked choice voting helps them nominate popular, broadly liked candidates, is going to do really well. So Republicans in Virginia have already figured this out. They used ranked choice voting to nominate their candidate for governor. And it worked exactly like they hoped it would. It helped them nominate a broadly liked candidate. And so I think whether parties really like, sometimes conservatives are a little bit more hesitant to try out something new, but just the sheer usefulness of ranked choice voting will eventually overcome that, I think. And when we're looking at a broad field of candidates, like we'll probably be looking at in 2024, I would anticipate that some Republicans are going to say, hey, there is this tool out there that can help with this. So I hope so. I can't speak too much directly to what's actually happening in conversations. Lisa, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just to say that Ben, you and I both spotted a piece that was just out today, published by the right-leaning think tank R Street, that is about the benefits of using ranked choice voting in the presidential primary. So yes, indeed, we're definitely seeing Republicans recognizing that this can help them a lot to nominate a candidate who's electable for 2024.
Thanks. Thank you very much for adding that. That is a great piece. And yeah, we'll have to find a way to share that with folks via email or on our website. Our next question comes from Kit. Kit asks, do you think the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger's suggestion that the Georgia legislature consider ranked choice voting for all voters will move the needle? So the background of this is Georgia just held a runoff election to choose between Senator Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. And they could have just used ranked choice voting and saved a whole bunch of money. And the Georgia Secretary of State has said, hey, we could use ranked choice voting and save a whole bunch of time and money. Anybody want to take that question? Do we think that will move the needle?
Steph, you go ahead.
Ben, I got so lost in how great your answer was. Could you actually just repeat the question? I got totally distracted by because I thought you just answered it. So what was the question exactly?
Do we think that the Secretary of State of Georgia's suggestion to use ranked choice voting in Georgia to get rid of expensive runoffs will move the needle for ranked choice voting?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, the answer is yes. I think that will absolutely move the needle. Here's what I like to think about, and this example came to me from Lisa Aero, my boss, which is, here's something to think about. On November 8th, a lot of people voted, including a lot of people in Alaska and a lot of people in Georgia. In Alaska, the ballot said, okay, we all want your first choice, but we also want your second and third choice. So please share all of that information with us right now. And Alaskans said, okay, here you go. And in Georgia, they said, great, so glad that you've all turned out to vote this one time. Please only give us some information. Don't give us all of the information. We only want to know who your first choice is. So the Alaskan election, or the election in Alaska, it took a little while because it's a big state. They had to get all the ballots together. And that's actually why it took a long time to get it fully, completely certified. But they only had to do it once. They had one election on November 8th. That was it, because they asked for all of the information at one time. And then Georgia, the reason this is a very long answer to Kit's extraordinary question is that they actually asked for all of the information they needed in Alaska, and in Georgia, they only asked for some of the information. And I think that that's a key. They were both federal elections. They were both really important elections. And I think that the Secretary of State in Georgia is right. They could save their state some money. And also that means that voters only have to fill out their ballots once. It might take an extra second to fill in an extra bubble, but it's absolutely gonna move the needle.
Just a couple things to add.
Oh, Lisa, this might have been exactly what you were.
Yeah, you go.
But people might not be aware, but the reason that there was a runoff is there was one specific person who ran specifically to be a spoiler, to point this out and highlight this issue. So that's the entire reason the race went to a runoff in the first place. And Lisa, if you have anybody want to say on that, obviously.
Yeah, no, thanks for adding that. And I think I can just add one more thing that hasn't been said about Georgia. there actually is a group of Georgians who got ranked ballots in this election, and they have demonstrated the benefit. And those are all the military and overseas voters who are registered in Georgia were able to vote using ranked choice voting because they knew there wasn't going to be time enough to get those voters a second ballot in the short window of time before that runoff. So you're seeing that at this point, both parties are noticing that it would have saved Georgian voters a whole lot of money and time and hassle and negative campaigning if they could all just do what the military and overseas voters have done. So there's a tremendous amount of interest there. It's a great needle moving example, Kit. Thanks for the question.
Thank you for those answers. All right. Our next question is one I've answered a lot because it's a great question. This is from Mary. It says, okay, I understand why we're prioritizing the presidential primaries bill, but I have a question. If local options is not yet passed in Washington, how did Seattle manage to legally choose ranked choice voting?
I'll jump in and just answer that one quickly, Mary. Such a good question. There are very few cities and counties in Washington state that do have authority to change the way they vote, mostly only in the primary, as Stephanie, I think, already explained. Seattle is a charter city, and that allowed Seattle to be able to ask the voters if they want to change the way they vote in the primary. Seattle still has to send the top 2 vote getters to the November election. That top 2 system is mandated across the state. And as most of you who are listening tonight recognize, ranked choice voting is efficient enough to be able to decide the election on one ballot, don't have to do it twice. So there are some limitations right now to how far cities and towns and school boards and other local jurisdictions can go with ranked choice voting. Most of them can't do anything until the local options bill passes. Only the charter cities and charter counties can even begin to make some changes. So we're excited for Seattle, but we'd like to be able to allow, have the state legislature get out of the way and let all local jurisdictions be able to try it.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, we have a question from Jane that asks, will this presidential primary legislation have bipartisan support?
Steph, can you take that one?
Sure. We are still on the lookout for some sponsors. I can tell you, though, that the presidential primary bill for the last legislative session earlier this year did have bipartisan support. Senator Ann Rivers, who is a Republican in Clark County, was our sponsor, and Representative Shoemake, who's a Democrat, was our sponsor in the House. That is a great question, an important question, and thank you for asking it.
And Mary, just to underscore what Stephanie said, yes, our legislation has had bipartisan support through each committee vote and in the sponsorship of the bills so far. All of those have been bipartisan, and we're hoping to continue that in 2023. Thanks for the question.
Great. We have a question from Sharon that asks, ranked choice voting is nonpartisan. Is it advisable to have partisan organizations endorse it or not?
Yes. I think it's a really important question, and Sharon, first of all, hi Sharon. Second of all, it's important to recognize that ranked choice voting is supported by both parties. Ben has talked about a couple of Republicans. I've talked about a couple of Democrats, and also a lot of folks who would prefer not to belong to either party, especially here in Washington. But those are still groups, or I like to think of them as like the Democratic Party club, the Democratic Party. That that's how they act sometimes. They're a club. People look to them for guidance. Folks who maybe are not really sure, like, oh, is this gonna, like, I don't necessarily want to do all of the research, or I want to think about this, like I want some guidance from someone else in my community. Those are still community groups. They're clubs. Like, so I think even if you have a group that has partisan leanings or is very obviously partisan, we'll still love a recommendation or an endorsement from them. Nonpartisan is fantastic. One of our best endorsements in Seattle was from the League of Women Voters, who is definitely nonpartisan. So that is fantastic. But we also got a huge endorsement from the King County Democrats. So we'll take it all, because the point is that voters and volunteers, other supporters, need to be able to look at those groups and say, oh, those are my people. My people support that. I also can support this and feel safe and secure in that decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Steph. All right, let's see what else we got. We have a question from Timothy. Tim asks, from the Washington ranked choice voting election results and campaigns overall, do we know what demographics ranked choice voting does best with?
Steph, you want to take that one? We do know quite a bit from our polling, don't we?
Yes. The best demographic was actually renters in Seattle. So take what you will from that. But when we were doing our polling, we found that young people are absolutely in on ranked choice voting. They want to use it all day, every day, in every election that they have. I think that it's sort of entered in. A lot of colleges use ranked choice voting. There have been, like I mentioned before, I found out about it on a podcast. There have been some Netflix specials about it or at least that have featured ranked choice voting. So young people are all in. They're also, a lot of them are looking at the system and saying, wow, this isn't working. There must be a better way. There must be another way. And ranked choice voting is the conclusion that they're arriving at. Now, that all of that being said, we've also found that people who are members of groups that are traditionally under or completely unrepresented are also supportive of ranked choice voting. They need some reassurance. That was a lot of what we spent our campaign doing, was saying, like, these groups have endorsed. Ranked choice voting has been used in the state of Maine, in the city of New York. This is not going to break the whole government. And that was a really important message for us to share. But when the votes came in, it was really renters who stepped up and said, yeah, we're ready for change. And yeah, we are ready for ranked choice voting. Absolutely.
Thanks, Steph. And you mentioned universities are passing ranked choice voting and using it there. I was actually part of the reason that my former college, the University of Illinois, has ranked choice voting. My friend was the student body president. He really liked ranked choice voting, so we got to pass there. So if there's any college students on this call, you can pass ranked choice voting at your university. So let me know if you want help with that, because it's actually not that difficult. So our final question, it is 7:25. Our final question comes from Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane asks, do you want us to send our group support to you so you can put it on your website? Or do you want us to contact our legislative reps directly, or both?
Ben, I think you might be able to answer the question about whether they send the individual ones
Sure.
put on our website.
Well, both, absolutely both. So we are happy to feature endorsements of our legislation or of our campaigns on our website. And we love doing it. We put a logo up and say, look at all these people who support ranked choice voting. If you remember our Seattle website, we had like 40 organizations by the end of the campaign that all said, this is the way to go. So all about that. However, if you are particularly part of a local Democrat group, let's say, and your local Democrat group votes to support the ranked choice voting for presidential primaries bill, you should let your legislator know, because they're going to be really interested to know what their local Democrat or local Republican group thinks about this policy, because you're going to be maybe knocking on doors and deciding which candidates to endorse. But also, hey, if you got a book club, we certainly want to know, and your legislator probably wants to know. These people read. They're well read on this topic, probably. So I want to listen to them. They probably thought about this. So whoever you are in whatever group you're part of, reach out to us. Let us know your group is interested in supporting this bill, and please do let your legislators know as well. Anything anybody else would like to add to that?
Yes, first of all, definitely Girl Scouts are the future of America. So if their opinions matter too, definitely. And in terms of reaching out to your legislator, we definitely want people to do that, but we also want to make sure we do it in kind of an organized fashion. And I am the organizer. So it's pretty important to us that we, keep things nice and organized. So that's why we're asking you to contact us directly, go through us. You will be getting this survey form that will kind of have a section in it that's like, hey, do you want to talk to your legislator? And if you say yes to that, I will schedule you a session with me and we will talk about exactly how you go about doing that, because we want to be, organized, which I know I've said 4 different times, but.
It's very good to be organized. Thank you, Sam. Well, is there anything anybody would like to add before I make the final pitch of the evening? Let me sign off. Great. Okay. Well, I will take from here. Thank you so much to all of you for answering those questions. And thank you to the question askers, because I know we weren't able to get to all of them, but if you really, really wanted to answer that question, shoot us an email at info@fairvotewa.org and we can get back to you. So thank you for the questions. Now, what's going to happen moving into 2023? We've got another legislative session. Many of you have been through a legislative session with us before, so you know the drill. Here's how you can help out. When we ask you to contact your legislators, we generally ask for one of 2 reasons. Either your representative is a key vote on a key committee that we need the support of to continue passing our legislation. If your representative is on a committee, that's so important. So when we're asking you to contact your legislator, it really is time sensitive and it really is important. The other reason you might ask is because legislators just need to know what bills are a priority. Look, we all agree ranked choice voting is a top priority, but legislators have a lot going on. And so if they're not hearing constantly from us and people like you about why ranked choice voting is so important and so pressing, remember, we have a 2024 primary coming up for president. We need to pass this bill this year. So if your legislator doesn't understand why time is of the essence for this bill, they're not going to really think, okay, why do I have to learn about this bill? Why do I have to have that meeting with that person who's an advocate for this? They need to know that this is a priority. Okay, so if you are really, really fired up and you want to meet with your legislator, again, talk with Sam. Sam will give you the resources you need to make sure that meeting is successful. The other thing you can do to help out, like we mentioned, get endorsers from activist groups to book clubs to apparently board game groups as well. We want to show that every person, every voter counts. That's what ranked choice voting is about at the end of the day. Even if your group isn't political at all, that may even be better. So get your group talking about ranked choice voting and let's make this happen. So my final request before we sign off is you're going to get an email tomorrow morning, assuming I'm on top of my game and I get that email out to you. You're going to get an email tomorrow morning with a survey. And that survey is going to ask you how we can help get you involved better, how we can help you be part of this movement. And if you fill it out, you're going to help us become an even better, more effective organization that works with people like you better. So please do fill that out and keep an eye out in your email for that. With that, that's the last thing we got on our agenda. Anything else to add from our panelists?
I just want to say thanks for all these great questions. We didn't get to all of them. I've been trying to type answers to some of you, but if you still have a question that didn't get answered, please email us info@fairvotewa.org, or if you got our number, just give us a call. We'll be glad to take some time and make sure you get your questions answered.
For sure.
And thanks to my panelists too, Stephanie, Sam, Ben. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night and take care.